Did Elon Musk just blow up the big, beautiful bill?
No, I think he's a brilliant guy. He single-handedly has put Americans back into space in a big way, but he doesn't understand politics. He proved over the last 4 months that it was an interesting experiment and it didn't work. And I think very few House or Senate members are going to take him seriously.
Really?
Yeah, they're just going to, I mean, look.
Oh, they dismiss his comment.
They're just going to say this is not, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I do think there are senators who have very real concerns on the spending side, and Trump's going to have to work with them to find a way to make them more comfortable, because it's not an automatic yes. And some are very serious guys who've been around a long time.
I can't imagine it not passing. I mean, what would happen if it didn't pass? Eventually,
I have a big imagination, so I can imagine it not passing, but I would bet that it will pass. But it will take Trump personally meeting with individual senators, listening to their concerns, and in some cases, finding creative solutions outside the bill. I mean, if somebody comes in and says, I really want to help cut spending, they have a rescission bill as a start.
Yep.
They'll have some more rescission bills. There'll be other things they can do. And look, this is what the Founding Fathers wanted. It's a legislative process. The House has to say something. The Senate has to say something. The President has to get involved. It's exactly the system the Founding Fathers wanted.
They're calling it alien versus predator. And Vladimir Putin, I kid you not, Vladimir Putin is offering to help negotiate a peace. It's a battle royale for the ages, but unfortunately for one of them, it's not even close. And that got your Patriot professor in a little hot water on X. I'll show you in a mere moment. We're going to see what's really going on here. We're going to see the latest on the status of the big, beautiful bill and what ultimately we should expect to come out of this very public clash of the Titans. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. It is Live Stream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your Patriot professor, here to celebrate with you the dawn of a new American golden age that you made possible back on November the 5th. So if you want a front row seat on all things happening in the rise of a new conservative civilizationalist world, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. As always, we've got a jam-packed show for you today. It's my pledge to try to make you feel smarter by the end of it all as we discover the deeper meaning of what's really happening all around us. Our super chats, of course, are now up, so feel free to send in your questions. I'll be happy to answer them throughout the live stream. You can actually send in your questions in two ways, as always, either through a one-time gift via our super chats or just by becoming a Courageous Patriots Club member, where your one-time monthly gift will enable you to ask me as many questions as you like. So just click on that link below to join. You'll have instant access to all kinds of exclusive live Q&As and special content. Either way, it will be my privilege to answer your questions throughout the live stream. One of my favorite movies growing up as a kid was The War of the Gargantuas. Who's seen that? Put that in the chat if you've seen that. War of the Gargantuas, 1960s Japanese monster movie. I can still remember where I was. I couldn't have been more like than 7 or 8 years old when I first saw it, when it first came on a black and white television that I was watching in my parents' living room. And I was just absolutely captivated by this movie. And it's about these two giant monsters who are brothers, but who ended up fighting each other with Tokyo as their ring, their octagon, and they end up destroying much of the city in the process. And I can't help but think that that's a fitting metaphor for what we're all witnessing here, minus destroying the city. I don't think anything's ultimately going to get destroyed. Well, outside of someone's fear, which I will get into. But this does appear that what we're seeing over the last 24 hours for sure, in terms of its escalation, does appear to be two gargantuan egos clashing without regard for whatever mess they happen to be making of things in the process. So let's start with the two overarching theories out there for this conflict between Trump and Elon. The first is that it's all staged. This is virtual politics. This is Kabuki theater. I'm calling this actually the Kabuki thesis. And what it's basically involves is that this is helping Elon decouple things from Trump so as to re-energize his businesses, particularly Tesla, and reestablish his independence from Trump for the wider market. So this theory argues that Elon had to have known that his outbursts would have adversely affected Tesla's stock. He had to know that. And Tesla investors are used to volatility, so that's okay. And it, of course, recovers since this is a scripted temporary feud. But Elon and Trump decided to have a massive public tiff over the reconciliation bill that was going to pass regardless. And that would be the occasion for Elon's decoupling. And he could decouple by coming across as principled in his libertarian opposition to the bill, and Trump would come across as loyal to his base, who overwhelmingly support the bill. We'll see that in a moment. And that they can both get what they want and walk away in a win-win situation. And Megyn Kelly appears to be very prone to that theory based on her own experience. Check this out.
Really crazy, so crazy, Sean. Because I walked out. We agreed, like, we're good. And the last thing he said to me before I walked out of Trump Tower was, you know, Megyn, it's not such a good thing if they're not talking about us. And I was like, oh my God, was this whole thing for show? Like, was he acting the whole time?
Wow.
To generate buzz?
So that's what I'm calling the Kabuki theory, that this has all been choreographed. This has been staged in order to generate a particular publicity. Some are theorizing that would enable Elon to decouple himself from Trump, where they both have a win-win. Now, the primary reason for such a theory is the inability to believe that Elon could be this totally and completely stupid. I'll just be blunt. This widely recognized, obvious genius could not possibly be so stupid as to think he could deliberately turn the most powerful man on the planet into his enemy, and somehow he'll come out on top on that one. He could not possibly be so stupid as to inadvertently tank Tesla stock. I mean, he's got the entire Democrat Party trying to bring him down. There's no possible way that he would think it would be to his advantage to turn himself into the enemy, the most powerful man on the planet, really the only one ultimately who's standing in between Elon and his enemies. I think it's that assumption that's ultimately the driving dynamic behind the Kabuki hypothesis. But as this thing continued to escalate to Defcon 5 levels throughout the day, that hypothesis began to shatter. It became more and more apparent that this is real. Elon went ballistic. He went directly from Defcon 1 to Defcon 5 in a matter of just a few tweets over a freaking reconciliation bill. That doesn't make sense. Who would have scripted that? Who would have scripted, yeah, let's have a little feud over the reconciliation bill, and then you accuse me of being a pedophile. Right? And then I'll accuse you of being a bona fide Nazi. I mean, it just literally in a matter of a couple of tweets, Elon accused Trump of being in the Epstein files, and that's why they weren't being released. That's the real reason. How's that for a bomb, he said. He openly floated the notion of starting a third party. And he called for President Trump's impeachment and conviction and J.D. Vance to be made president instead. And then he threatened to take his rocket and go home and cease all SpaceX operations. I mean, this was an escalation of the highest hysterics that suggests to me this went way beyond script. And it became apparent to more and more people, Charlie Kirk, Steve Bannon, Jack Posobiec, many others, that this was indeed genuine. This was a real war of the gargantuas, two gargantuan egos clashing, the richest man in the world versus the most powerful man in the world. And so then, if that's the case, then the question is why? Why would Elon pick a fight with Trump or vice versa? I think the chronology favors the former. It was Elon who did come out of nowhere swinging against the big, beautiful bill, calling it a, quote, disgusting abomination. Then just hours later, he called on his millions of ex-followers to call their senators and congressmen and kill the bill. And then Trump was like, dude, over my dead body, this bill is going to pass. I'm all in with this thing. And then he insinuated that Elon didn't like the bill because it took away his subsidies. And that's when things went ballistic from Elon. But we have to realize that what Trump said there actually does have merit, at least from the vantage point of perception. A number of pieces are coming out detailing how Musk sought to profit from his proximity to Trump. For right or for wrong is kind of irrelevant. It's just that what Trump said there for why Elon didn't like this bill does have, it seems, at least some merit. So, for example, Musk has significant ties with China. Bannon has been railing on that for years now. While Teslas made in the United States are by and large produced here, that's true. Many of the Teslas that Musk sells across the globe are produced where? They're produced in China, as is some 40% of his battery supply chain, meaning his fortune to a significant degree rests on being in the good graces of President Xi and the CCP. And again, apparently reports are that inside the White House, Trump was actually quite livid to have found out that at one point Elon was actually invited to a China intelligence briefing inside the White House. Trump saw that as a clear conflict of interest. And then we're getting word that during Trump's recent Middle East trip, there were reports that Musk worked hard to sabotage the deal between the UAE and his competitor Sam Altman's OpenAI, if it didn't include Musk's own AI startup. And again, he was reportedly milking his close relationship with Trump for his own gain there in the Middle East. But unfortunately for Musk, the deal went through without him, which he wasn't happy about. And it's been reported that he was equally unhappy about the big, beautiful bills cutting off of electric vehicle tax credits. He did say as much in a tweet, saying that notice they're not doing this against fossil fuels. This is a government subsidy upon which Tesla does, at least to an extent, rely. So this is exactly what Trump said in terms of why he thought Elon was doing his best to tank the bill, to use the good graces that he had amassed as one of the most important members of the MAGA movement to try to convince the MAGA base to rise up and pressure their congressmen to defeat this bill, all the while putting his own pressure on members of Congress to sink it by threatening to fund primary opponents or even start a third party. And so that set the stage for this clash of titans, the richest man in the world versus the most powerful man in the world. And Elon appears to thought that he could pull this off. Elon thought he could pull this off and then at some point realized he can't. You see, because there's just one problem. There was something in Elon's way that he would find totally impossible to overcome. And that is what got your Patriot professor in a little trouble on X. And it's exactly what we're going to find out. But first, again, if you are just joining us and you'd like to ask me your questions, you can do it in two ways. You can send us a super chat. I'll be happy to answer your question all throughout the broadcast. Or you could click on that link below and join our Courageous Conservatives Club, where for just one modest monthly fee, you can ask me as many questions as you like. I'll be happy to answer them right here on this live stream. Also, we're all about standing up for the timeless values of faith, family, and freedom. So that's why I partnered with Patriot Mobile, because they're on the front lines for the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, and our military and first responder heroes. And I urge you to take up the fight, take a stand for conservative causes, and put America first by switching to Patriot Mobile today. I mean, like right now, click on that link right now. You'll get the same nationwide coverage as the big providers, because Patriot Mobile operates across all three major networks. Plus, they back their service with a coverage guarantee. Their 100% US-based customer service team will find the best plan for your needs. You could keep your number, you could keep your phone, or you can upgrade. It's all up to you. Go to patriotmobile.com/TurleyTalks or give them a call at 972-PATRIOT. That's 972-PATRIOT. So right now, you're going to get a free month, an entire free month, when you use the offer code TurleyTalks. So don't get fooled by other providers pretending to share your values. I have the same coverage. They don't and they can't. Join me, switch to America's only Christian conservative mobile provider, Patriot Mobile, today. The problem, the fundamental problem for Elon here is that in politics, power is everything. We often talk about that on this channel. Politics is all about power. When all is said and done, it is not ideology. It is not. Politics is a practice. It is a momentum. It is a dynamic. Now, you can have all the ideology you want, but if you don't have the power to implement that ideology, it's going to go the way of the dodo bird. And when it comes to money and wealth, they're huge. Money and wealth itself has a lot of power, but power itself goes beyond money and wealth. If money and wealth were equivalent to power, then Kamala Harris would be president right now. $2 billion will buy you the presidency, but it didn't. Power is multifaceted, and Trump has it in a way that Elon Musk simply does not. And what that means is that Trump is guaranteed to win this escalation war. Trump has more power, and therefore he can escalate higher and farther than Elon. So, with that in mind, this is what I tweeted out yesterday. It's gotten lots of tens and thousands of retweets and views and all that sort of stuff. It was quite the controversial statement, I guess. But this was in response to Elon claiming that without him, Trump couldn't have won the election. What ingratitude. And I wrote, yeah, sorry, Elon, you risk desanitizing yourself here. Trump is MAGA. No one is co-opting MAGA away from him. The base supports both him and the big, beautiful bill. It's really that simple. In other words, I'm sorry, I'm just simply pointing out the politically obvious. Trump's got all the power here ultimately. He's got all the cards. He's got all the cards. And again, Elon is very popular, very influential, rightly so. Just as Governor Ron DeSantis is very popular, very influential, rightly so. But when either one of them tries to put themselves in the place of Trump, either by taking credit for November or trying to steal the nomination from him, they will quickly find out they got no power. Trump has amassed unprecedented loyalty and political power that no one can co-opt. You can call that a cult to your blue in the face. It changes nothing. It just makes you more enemies. That's all it does. Well, let's just say that the pushback that I got from that tweet was rather intense, to say the least. You can look down. I mean, there's hundreds of them. There may even be thousands of them at this point. Musk commands quite the loyal army on X, and the gist of the blowback was, Turley, you're so full of it. We don't support the bill. I'm MAGA through and through, and I don't support this bill. Trump is betraying all of us. I'm MAGA, and I'm 100% behind Elon. Elon's right. MAGA doesn't support this bill. MAGA doesn't support this bill. MAGA does not support this. On and on and on and on. So, as your Patriot professor, I tweeted a follow-up. 3 simple words. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. By 78%. And I cited the Daily Signal report that came out this week on NNS, or from NNS, the Napolitano News Service, or Napolitan News Service. It was a survey of 1,000 registered voters that found that nearly 80% of those who identified as MAGAs, Trump supporters, approved of the big, beautiful bill and wanted it passed. 80%. They loved the border security measures. They loved the no tax on tips and overtime pay, which polls show nearly 80% approval among all Americans as a whole. Trump's base overwhelmingly likes this bill. Now, what's so interesting here is that said, 63% of those very same self-identified Trump supporters are concerned that the bill is not cutting spending enough. But again, what's so interesting here is that those concerns do not affect the bill's support. And that's the key here. I'm sorry, I'm not making the rules. I'm not scripting this. This is just, I'm being descriptive, not prescriptive here. Trump supporters, by and large, do not see an either or here. They both approve of the bill and they're concerned about too much spending. But that resolves for them with a separate follow-up rescission package that begins instituting the DOGE cuts. And that's precisely what Trump is doing. The OMB has already delivered out on that, sending DOGE cuts to the tune of $10 billion to be ratified by Congress. So Trump's already making good on that expectation. And this is precisely how this process is supposed to play out. Again, Newt Gingrich was talking about this as a former Speaker of the House who actually presided over a balanced budget 4 years in a row. He argues that this is the first step. This is a reconciliation bill. It's the first step to balancing the budget. It's not the last step. It's not the all or nothing step. It's an important first step that creates economic growth. It's got substantial cuts in domestic spending. It reforms Medicaid in a substantial way. And then more bills, rescission bills, are to come that will hopefully get these spending cuts that so many in the more libertarian wing of things want to see it. However, what Elon is ultimately trying to do here is he's trying to turn a both and into an either or. In other words, as far as Trump supporters are concerned, they think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can pass the big, beautiful bill and then follow it up with rescission packages to institute DOGE cuts. And Trump is acting in accordance with those both and sentiments. Whereas Elon is trying to change those sentiments. He's trying to turn those both and sentiments into an either or. It's either this bill or it's spending cuts, but you can't have both. So Elon is going against the grain, as it were. So bottom line, all of this comes down to who does the MAGA base ultimately trust in all of this? Who is the MAGA base going to stand with when all is said and done? And the answer is obvious. Here is the one and only Harry Enton of CNN.
Elon Musk is a very popular guy amongst Republicans, a plus 63 net favorability rating. Beats Mike Johnson at plus 46, who, of course, is the Speaker. How about John Thune, the Republican leader in the Senate, only a plus 30. So if Musk is taking on these two gentlemen, it's not a fair fight. Elon Musk is a very popular dude, but he is nowhere close to where Donald Trump is within the Republican ranks. Look at that, a plus 79 net favorability rating. So if Donald Trump decides to turn his fire on Elon Musk, that is a fight that Elon Musk simply put cannot win. If Donald Trump stays out of it, he stands a pretty good chance, Elon Musk does, against Johnson and Thune.
And so your Patriot professor posted yet another follow-up tweet for all those supposed MAGA faithful who are 100% behind Elon. It's the latest YouGov poll, and it shows that 71% of Republicans side with, guess who? Guess who? You just saw it with Harry Enton. Again, this is a separate poll, YouGov poll. Who did they side with? Trump. 71%. Take a look at how many are siding with Elon. 6%. 6 freaking percent. Again, I didn't script this. I'm not making this up. I'm analyzing it. In the battle between wealth and power, power always, write this down, underline it, always wins. Did I say always? That was my point. And that's exactly what we're seeing playing out on Capitol Hill around the big, beautiful bill. Wait until you see the reaction from congressmen who are normally aligned with Elon. Wait till you see what they have to say now. But first, gang, did you see that President Trump just signed an executive order outlining his plans to create America's first national sovereign wealth fund? And it's going to need to be filled up with assets fast. I mean, Trump wants to go live with this in the next 90 days. The Wall Street types are focused on packing it with, real estate, infrastructure, pieces of trendy companies like TikTok. But let's not forget about gold. Sovereign wealth funds love to buy gold in bulk. Australia's been loading up. You've heard probably Saudi Arabia's. They're buying the world's largest gold mine to supply itself. Even tiny Singapore recently added more than 100 metric tons of gold to its vaults. Can you imagine what would happen to the per ounce price of gold, which has already been surging sky high since Trump took office, if America's new sovereign wealth fund followed international best practices and made gold a part of its diversified portfolio? I mean, it would potentially make our country a brand new mega buyer in an already tight market. And when there's limited supply and huge demand, the impact on prices, well, gang, let's just say you're going to want to be ready. And there's a simple way to get ready too. It's all laid out for you in the free gold report from my partners at turleytalkslikesgold.com. You want to request your copy right away here. After all, President Trump has put the world on notice. A new sovereign wealth fund for America is coming perhaps in the next 90 days. So take advantage of the time you have to prepare. Get your free gold report now at turleytalkslikesgold.com.
Less than a week ago, they were best buddies in the White House.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, you have big personalities. Again, I think Elon crossed the line today. But
has Trump crossed the line threatening to cancel his contracts?
Look, I mean, let those guys go play it out. But I mean, right now, I'm focused on doing the job that the president came here to do. Happy to work with the White House, work with our friends to finish the job, and we got a lot of work to do.
But do you think it could be damaging?
What's that? I mean, you guys love this stuff. You guys love to make it a distraction. I mean, we're focused on our job, and that's not going to change.
You'd love it if
the
it was
rescissions,
Democrats
the rescissions
like
are the
this,
rescissions, right? Like, I mean, we got to go past the rescissions. The big beautiful bill is the big beautiful bill. So we got to go deliver. That's the bottom line.
This all started by Musk wanting more deficit reduction and more
I
cuts.
agree. We should have more deficit reduction.
Did he the one
he's
that
not
crossed
right
the
about
line?
how he's handling it. What's that?
But was he the one that crossed the line because he's been opposed consistently?
Yeah, I assure you, he crossed the line on what he said about the sitting president of the United States today. Okay, the bottom line is we have a job to do. Elon was doing a great job in terms of the rescissions, in terms of the DOGE cuts that he identified, and look, and I don't disagree with them about our need to go find more spending cuts. I don't, but guys, keep it in the lines.
Keep it in line. So that was Texas Representative Chip Roy, who's not been shy about his criticisms of Trump in the past. That's what he had to say about the feud. Note what you just heard there. Elon's right. We need more spending cuts, but it's a both and. It's not an either or. This is just this big, beautiful bill is just the beginning. And Elon crossed the line. His comments about the president, about the most powerful man on the planet, crossed the line. Here's Representative Troy Nehls.
For this country over the last several months, but you've lost your damn mind. You've lost your mind. Enough is enough. Stop this. I don't think it's healthy to think that Donald Trump, there's 77, 80 million people that would disagree. So I think Elon Musk is very gifted and talented. He's very successful. I think he has a lot to offer our great country as it relates to space, and whether it's Mars, go back to the moon, but to start.
Oh, I thought he was going to finish off, but to just say that you get the point. I think you have to interpret Steve Bannon's rather incendiary comments of late that SpaceX should be nationalized, in effect seized by the federal government, and Elon should be deported. Did you see this? This is how I think you need to interpret ultimately Bannon's comments there. Bannon is openly calling for an investigation into Musk's immigration status. He's accusing him of being here illegally, of basically working with the CCP, and that he should be immediately deported. Now, what a week this has been, huh? Again, for me, the key to that is this escalation ladder. That to me is that's the frame by which I'm interpreting what's going on here. The key to that is Bannon is revealing to Elon just how short Elon's escalation ladder really is. When you are dealing with political confrontation, when you begin a process of going up an escalation ladder, the loser inevitably is the one who reaches the limits of their escalation potential before their opponent does. And even if you're the richest man in the world, if you're in an escalation battle with the most powerful man in the world, by definition, he's got a taller ladder. Remember Trump's whole thing with Kim Jong-un? I got my buttons bigger than yours, right? I got to remember that. I have an interview later on. That's just perfect because I think this is Kim Jong-un part 2. My button's bigger than yours. My escalation ladder goes way higher than yours. You are going to lose this, Elon. Do not go here. Do not go there. Again, this is also, for me, what kind of brings me back to Kabuki theory. How could Elon not know this? He has to have at least some sense that there's no way he could possibly out-escalate, over-escalate the man who has the power to seize his property and even potentially deport him. I mean, you would think, right? But the sheer scale of the Defcon 5 escalation on Musk's part suggests to me that there was a genuine emotive impulsiveness on his part that was not scripted, that went way beyond any script. And it's now beginning to bite him big time. When all said and done, I think Musk genuinely set out to kill the bill. I think he believed that he had enough influence on X, all the ones who gave me all those nice little salutations on my post, that they could amass the X army to sink this bill and that they could start afresh. He believed that. No one, by the way, on the Hill believes that. No, even the bill's largest detractor, I guess, for the exception of Tom Massey, but Tom Massey can't get 3 votes. He cannot assemble a coalition, so it's irrelevant. But I mean, seriously, no one, even the bill's strongest detractors, believe the bill needs to be amended. It needs to be refined. They're not talking about killing the bill. No one's talking about killing the bill. No one who's taking the coalitions to pass it seriously. So when he realized that his influence was not going to kill the bill for whatever reason, ultimately of why he wanted to kill it, whatever it was, when he realized that, I think he just flipped out. I do. I think he just flipped out. I think when he realized it didn't work out, he seemed to just go completely ballistic. And to bring back the War of the Gargantuas, he started breaking all the buildings around him. You probably saw this. I mean, Tesla stock cratered yesterday. It cratered. All the gains that Tesla made over the last few months were literally wiped out in a matter of hours after Elon escalated the feud to ridiculously hysterical heights. And again, to make matters even worse, according to this report by The Hill, no one cares. No one cares about Elon. No one's listening to him. Again, this is coming from The Hill. Quote, out of nearly a dozen Republican Capitol offices that spoke with The Hill, ranging from rank and file members to leadership, almost none had gotten any calls from GOP supporting constituents opposing the bill by the afternoon after the Musk posts, or callers making references to the billionaire. One office reported one caller. One office reported one caller who said, kill the bill. As I said, again, on Capitol Hill, even the loudest critics of the bill have no appetite to throw out the measure and start afresh. No one wants to kill this bill. No one other than Elon and his ex-followers, who couldn't even be bothered to contact their congressman. And that's the key. And that's what I really don't understand here when it comes to Elon. What's this escalation ultimately for? Again, think about it. Think about how short his ladder is. He can't go to the Democrats precisely because his whole objection is over Washington spending too much money. And you don't get bigger spenders than the Democrats. The last 4 years proved that. Biden added $1 trillion to the debt every quarter. Elon's radically opposed to wokeness and DEI, and the Democrats have doubled down on the very trans issues that his son fell victim to. So then that's why he ended up, I guess, suggesting starting a third party. But again, all that would do would be potentially split the Republicans and empower the Democrats. And Mike Cernovich stated the obvious. What happens to the national debt if Democrats win in 2028 and reopen the borders? By the way, speaking of what he said, 2028, speaking of 2026, while this War of the Gargantuas is happening, take a look at this. This is awesome. This is the latest from the Cook Political Report. A huge shout out to California ET nerd at Early Vote Data. I love his Twitter feed. 211 of the current Republican seats for 2026 are considered more or less safe. 211 of the Republican seats for the upcoming midterms are considered safe. That means the Republicans only need 7 seats to keep the House. Let that hit you. 7 seats. That's it. That is absolutely unbelievable. This is frankly unprecedented. The Republicans are poised to keep the House in the midterms and perhaps even make gains. You just don't. That is only something you see once every 100 years or so. Clinton was able to pull it off in 98, and a few years later, Bush Jr. was able to pull it off in 2002, but it's very, very rare. So that's an important aside that should not be that should be, I should say, the primary focus, not this war, the Gargantuas. Again, it just underscores how popular Trump and the America First agenda are. Now, I think the good news in all of this is that Musk is signaling that he's prepared to make peace with President Trump. It does appear to be coming to an end. We'll see. Trump did say this morning, he did tweet out or Truth Social out, he did make a Nazi salute. You do know that really was. We all know it was. I mean, it's like, oh gosh, it just never ends. But Musk does appear to be coming to the realization that this whole episode was the literal definition of blowing things out of proportion. I mean, again, when the smoke clears, you just have to ask the question, dude, were you really willing to try to destroy Trump and the whole MAGA movement over a freaking reconciliation bill? Seriously? So as things cool down, and they will at some point, it even happened in that movie, The War of Gargantuas. They do, well, they kill each other. But let's hope it doesn't fall to that. But as things do calm down, Musk will find out that his escalation ladder, only goes so high. But as things cool down, these two should patch things up. If Trump has proven anything, he can repair relationships. Look at Marco Rubio, right? He once dubbed him Little Marco, right? Now he and Trump have forged one of the strongest political alliances on the world stage, or Ted Cruz for that matter. Lion Ted even insulted. Trump insulted Ted Cruz's wife's looks, for heaven's sakes. Well, he's now one of Trump's staunchest allies, and Trump has his back. Heck, J.D. Vance was once a never Trumper who wrote for National Review. If Trump has proven anything, he can indeed repair relationships. He has no problem reconciling, and that's a good thing. Let's hope Elon exemplifies the same. In the meantime, like I talked about in yesterday's video, and to close the loop here with the opening video that you saw with Newt Gingrich at the beginning, I fully expect this bill to pass. David Marcus of Fox, he just published a very good piece that reveals the undeniable political realities that face congressional Republicans and the big, beautiful bill. And these political realities are exactly why no one, again, outside of an extreme Massey, but no one is talking about killing this bill. The political realities involve a carrot and a stick and a very severe stick. And that stick, simply put, is that were the Republicans to fail to pass this bill, they would be sticking the American people with a $4 trillion tax hike at the end of the year, the largest tax increase in American history. There's no way around that. If this bill does not pass, we will see the single greatest tax increase in our nation's history. No one is going to politically survive that. At the same time, the carrot, as we saw earlier with the Daily Signal report, is that the Republican base, by and large, likes the bill. And most particularly, Trump's base really, really, really likes the bill. So bottom line with this carrot and stick before Congress, bottom line, while MAGA loves Elon, nothing comes close to the base's loyalty to Donald Trump. And no matter how large a check Elon writes for a primary challenger, Trump's endorsement of an incumbent voting for this bill is priceless. But of course, it works the other way. Whoever votes against this bill, like Tom Massey and Rand Paul have been finding out, Trump will be merciless. And if you're a Republican congressman whose seat is not as safe as Massey's and Paul's, voting against this bill will be political suicide, both in terms of Trump's wrath against and the voters' wrath after they see their tax bill next April. So I expect the big, beautiful bill to pass in at least some form. It will be a major victory for Trump and the Republicans. July the 4th may be a little too optimistic. It's probably going to be more closer to August. The CBO is forecasting August is when the next debt ceiling vote has to come up. So that's most likely when we'll see this bill pass. But the political realities are that it will have to pass. And I do expect in the end that whatever rift that has opened up between Trump and Elon will ultimately be healed, and we can all get back to working together to make America great again. Over to you, gang. Let's hear what you've got to say. As Micah assembles all of your questions, it's more important than ever for all of us to reclaim our privacy, and you have no better way of protecting yourself than with SNLT. That's short for silent. Silence Faraday products block all incoming and outgoing signals so no one can get their hands on your information. From key FOBs to phones and laptops, simply place your device inside, close the sleeve, and voila, that's it. You're off the grid and safeguarded from unauthorized access. Go silent today by clicking on that link below or going to slnt.com/Turley to save 15% plus free shipping on all qualified orders. Stay ahead of what's coming and secure your privacy today. Again, that's slnt.com/Turley for 15% off on free shipping on all qualified orders. slnt.com/Turley. Excuse me. All right, Michael, what do we got? What questions you got? Remember, guys, just like Marilyn Dragondy's doing, if you want to ask a question, you could do it in two ways. We got our super chats up, or click on the link below and join our Courageous Patriots Club, where for a small monthly modest fee, you can ask me as many questions as you like. All right, Marilyn Daggett, I'm worried about World War III and nuclear war. Is there any hope? Well, yes. Yeah, I don't see it escalating that far. If you're talking about particularly the retaliation from Russia, I mean, I think we'll see, but I think Putin is going to be as disciplined as he has been throughout this entire military operation since February 2022. Is it now? And I think no, I don't. Right, I know NATO countries and neocons like Lindsey Graham are trying to goad him into attacking a NATO country. But I don't see that. Stanot under Section 41001 of the Big Beautiful Bill, developers could pay $10 million to apply for the power to use federal eminent domain authority to seize land for carbon pipeline constructions, overriding state and local laws. No, I look, people are going to find different problems with the bill. There's no question about it. So what? What are you going to do? I mean, again, whatever problems are in the bill get worked out, and then you have follow-up bills, and then you have rescission packages, and rescission packages can change things. So, okay, yeah, I mean, it's great, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Usher in the single greatest tax increase in American history so that a potential threat doesn't happen? Sorry, it's not the parity, the proportionality of it is just not there. Sorry, I know, and again, don't get me wrong, Stanat, but you know, I know we can get. I know there. How do I want to say this in a way that brings us, as it were, all together? You play an excellent and much needed service to the MAGA movement in pointing out flaws in a bill. This is very good, very important. But pointing out those flaws without a viable alternative is meaningless. The perfect cannot be the enemy of the good. It's just that simple. The perfect can't be the enemy of the good, because if it does, if it becomes the enemy of the good, then there's no way we can ever pass anything, because you'll always find something wrong, number one. And then number two, we get the single worst $4 trillion tax increase on December 31st when the tax cuts run out. Is that what you want? And then the Republicans fall apart, Democrats take power, and then we're shot. They open up the borders and we're shot. So what do you want? Right? I mean, I got it. We all see that there's problems with the bill, but put it in proportion. And this, for me, is what kind of really, I have to say, it really is disappointed a good word? I don't know if disappointed is a good word. It may be a goofy way of putting it. But this, for me, is... I was shocked, actually. Maybe that's a better... This is what shocked me about Elon. I get it. Okay, the bill isn't going down the way you wanted. Okay, I get it. And now you're going to start bringing up Epstein and taking your rocket and go home. And I'm going to start a third party and Trump needs to be impeached and convicted. What the F, dude? Put things in proportion. It's a reconciliation bill. So there you go. Troublemaker adjacent. Do you think the Epstein files comment by Musk will be enough to derail his partnership? Would the president sue Musk for libel, slander, defamation, or character? Will we see a full-throated reaction from Musk as to that statement? If we do, will that quell the anonymity that has come, or animosity, sorry, that has come up between them? We'll see. We'll see. The one theory is that Musk is going to get on television and do a tell-all. Which would just be so stupid. It's just, I mean, I just don't even know what to say. It would be, again, what he can do is he can embarrass Trump, or he can try to embarrass Trump, which is hard given what they've all put Trump through. But the problem with Elon is while he's popular with Republicans, he's not necessarily popular. He's certainly not popular with Democrats. They've been spending the last 6 months calling him a Nazi and burning his cars and dealerships. So he's certainly not popular among them, and he's not particularly popular among the population at large. They could be somewhat, ambiguous towards him, but we'll see. I don't know where that goes. Again, in the escalation ladder, what I just see is that Trump has, in effect, an infinite escalation ladder that Elon does not. His ladder is very, very short. And so I'm just not, I don't know why he's picking this fight in the end. It's just absurd. Outside of him being a bit unhinged, that would be an explanation. He's a genius, so it's hard for us to go there, because you would think a genius, part of the geniusness is self-reflection and a sense of reading the room and proportionality and symmetry and balance. Again, I have no one, I think, had any problem with Elon coming out. I mean, I think you could say it's a strategic problem. But him coming out publicly and say, this is an abomination. This shouldn't be happening. I'm like, all right, well, that's how I treated it yesterday morning. All right, that's, I get it. All right, you don't like the bill. I wish you didn't do it this way. I think there are smarter ways to do it. But hey, you're the genius, and I mean that. I don't mean that callously or facetiously. You are brilliant, so I'll go with you on it. Obviously, you think it's time that we all kind of got on board and pressured Congress to make some changes. Then a couple hours later, he said, nope, changes aren't enough. Kill the bill. There's no saving this bill. Kill the bill. You either get your savings or the bill. You don't get both. And that's when I said, well, that's silly. That's not, and that was my video yesterday. My video yesterday morning was, that's not reading the room. That's not the political reality. The vast majority of MAGA supporters want to walk and chew gum. They think Washington can. They support the bill, and they want rescission cuts coming later. That's problem solved, right? So it's a tall order for him to make, to try to turn that both and into an either or. And I think he found he couldn't. I think he found it didn't happen. The bill did not die. There was not mass uprising. And then he just went nuts. And then, well, and in fairness, and then, Trump was asked, well, what do you think about this? Why is he trying to kill the bill? And, he may have taken Trump's words as incredibly insulting. And again, all he had to say is, look, yeah, I get it. And he did. He tried to say it. He tried to say, yeah, this doesn't have the tax credits for EVs the same way it happens to have tax credits for fossil fuels and subsidies for fossil fuels. But that's not why I'm opposed to this bill. I'm opposed, and you could just stay in a principled manner and stay on script, as it were, and keep everything measured and proportionate. But then he went, all right, I'm just going to drop this bomb. He's in the Epstein file. And then you're just like, what the F? I mean, now it just goes full tabloid. And then once it goes, the problem there is once it goes there, it's like, all the monsters are unleashed, literally. And so the next thing we know, he wants to start another party. He wants Trump impeached and Vance put in office. And he's going to take his rocket and go home. And yeah, you're just kind of like, all right, this is over a reconciliation bill that just needs 50 votes in the Senate. Over a reconciliation bill. For heaven's sakes. So. ROT, Maker Trouble Corp. Dr. Turley talked about the Musk-Trump feud, but I struggle to believe it's as bad as it's being reported. They can't be this smart, this friendly, and working together as much that they've not talked about a potential headbutting. Do you really think it's two alpha businessmen going at it? Or do you think it's just Trump and Musk dangling a shiny, juicy object in front of lefties while hiding what they're really doing, like maybe deporting Boulder Man's family? Yeah, maybe. But no, I mean, real people are being affected by it, in fairness. We are seeing Tesla stock tank. Now, again, Tesla stock has high vol, but still, it seems to me it's I mean, that's got to be part of the script that Tesla earnings and market cap would drop like that. And I just find that a strange script. So no, I think in the end they just started yelling at each other. Look, there's an old saying: entrepreneurs make terrible employees. And Elon, he even said he was tech support. And he did not like being in the position of being an employee. It's not something he is used to, being the richest man in the world. And Trump hates betrayal. And you put those two things together, somebody just kind of gets frustrated over he wanted certain things done, and they weren't. He was basically, apparently, again, the word on the street is he's basically kicked out of the White House. Trump had some issues with Elon. Whether that's true or not, I'm just putting together what's out there. And then you combine that with a Trump sense of betrayal. It's easy for these two guys to start flipping out at each other. How will the populist right, the troublemaker, how will the populist right victories all over Europe reshape the continent? Do you see this as a rebirth of Western civilization? Well, potentially, yes. I do, definitely. So it is civilizational populism, and that is the rhetoric. The rhetoric coming from populist leaders is that we are losing our civilization. This isn't about recovering the Netherlands or Italy or France or Poland or Hungary. This is about recovering European civilization. Christian civilization is being lost with mass migration from Northern Africa and the Middle East. And so the rhetoric is increasingly civilizationalist. It's not about saving the Netherlands, saving Sweden, saving Italy, saving Hungary, saving the UK. It's about saving Europe. It's about saving Western civilization. So if they're serious about that, and that's winning, that's a winning ticket. That is because again, what it does is it redefines politics from a horizontal divide, left versus right, to a more vertical divide. The people, the true patriots of Europe versus this corrupt political class that's selling out their border security, economic security, and cultural security for their own political and economic gain. That's resonating very deeply with voter demographics. And so if it continues on that trajectory, I think you're going to continue to see a nationalist populist Europe form. EU will probably stick around, but it's going to be more decentralized. I think that's there because that's part of the sort of multicultural civilizational Europe. It's Europe made up of many, many different tribes and cultures and customs and traditions, but all pretty much under the guise of Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox Christianity. And so Brussels is going to have to, it's going to have to involve a more subsidiary governance which is more localized than a top-down governance, one-size-fits-all managerialism. I think those days would be over for sure. And the honoring of the individual diversity of the cultures of Europe would be affirmed. And as those cultures collectively make up a single European Christian civilization. RT Maker Trouble Dr. Steve, kind of sad Musk hasn't done a full audit of the Department of Defense. We did have some personnel cuts. Department of Defense civilians took the deferred retirement. In Army Flight School's case, many civilians were well into retirement age, so not much when retiring someone who's past retirement. Is Donald Trump failing to keep that promise? With Elon leaving, how are we going to get that audit? Cut or don't cut. Either way, do the audit, expose the waste. Look at me rooting for my own downfall. I know ROT's in the DOD. Well, yeah, we'll have to see. No, I don't think it's Trump per se. So again, these are just reports, but apparently Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, did call Elon a fraud. He accused him of being a fraud in that he did not produce the cuts that he was promising. So the waste, fraud, and abuse that he was promising, which was on the order of about $1 trillion. DOGE is finding a lot, but nowhere near that $1 trillion mark. And so something is just not right there, or something's not quite going on there, especially or going right there with that what we discovered with the USAID. That was some low hanging fruit, but now and then the cave files storage goblin Gollum underground cave that stores all of these files that takes months to process a single file. So I mean, it was a good start, and it seems to have run into some roadblocks. Government is very, very resistant to it being reformed, especially the deep state. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But yeah, I think part of why Elon left was just over a lot of frustration over resistance, but also just DOGE not necessarily coming up with things. That said, Pete Hegseth did say, he came out and said bluntly, DOGE is going to be thoroughly examining and analyzing the Defense Department, which they should be, absolutely. And so we'll see how it plays out. But again, we have 4 years, and they seem to have had a great start. And then, things started to peter out a little bit. So we'll have to see how things play out. MAGA 24 ever, Dr. Steve, could Musk's feud with Trump be as simple as a business decision to torpedo the one big beautiful bill to save the electric car credits for Tesla? Short answer, yes. Yes. Now, if you think that's completely disproportionate, something blown out of proportion, well, what do you do with, Musk's comments all going back, having to do ultimately with a reconciliation bill, right? So this whole thing is blown out of proportion by definition. The whole thing is disproportionate. So yeah, it could be. Terry Hurlbert, Elon Musk thinks he can build a political party for the middle and seems to think the distribution of political opinion as right, center, left is 10, 89, 10. Where did he get that idea? Does he even have a standard of truth? And how can anyone persuade him to reconsider? Well, I don't know the latter answer to that, Terry. I don't know. Rich Barris, our good friend, has pointed out he is politically extremely naive. He still uses the Morning Consult as apparently his main polling source. Now, pollsters, real pollsters, the good ones, call the Morning Consult the Morning Compost. It's horrible. It's terribly non-predictive. So I don't know. It's a good question as in terms of, again, he just made a lot of comments that were over the top and just did not appear to have their feet planted in reality. The feet were planted firmly in midair, and it was really bizarre to behold. So that's why a lot of people at first, when it first started going to, this is Kabuki theater. This is classic Trump, scripting out, doing some, virtual politics to make us think one way while they're doing something else behind the scenes and so forth. But as it escalated, it did look like it was real. And you have to wonder, what the heck was that? Rock Dog Original Troublemaker, Dr. Steve. Could this whole thing between Trump and Musk be a plan between them to totally throw the leftards, Democrats, to those in Rio Linda, and the drive-by media? Right. Again, that is what I call the Kabuki thesis. It may be. We will have to see how it plays out. But right now we have to analyze it, it seems to me. I think they would want us to, even if this were Kabuki theater. They would not want us saying it's Kabuki theater. They would want us analyzing it as if it were real. And then we'd have to, there are some interesting lessons to take, like power always beats wealth in politics. RT Maker Trouble. Dr. Turley, counter argument here, but hear me out. Everyone is laughing at the Democrats' $20 million SAM program to research young men. But I think it's a great idea. Personally, I'd love to see Democrats throw away another $80 million to pay me to vote Democrat. Seems like an excellent use of Soros money. Would you agree? Yeah, no, I'm with you. No, I think it's a hilarious study. The very fact that they think they have to study men to think that a study is the way to winning a demographic, I think is very interesting, because it shows that whatever support they get from that demographic is not organic, it's artificial. And they don't realize that the reason why nearly 200 counties in Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Minnesota, that had voted Democrat in every single election over the course of presidential election over the course of 30 years, suddenly shifted over and voted for Trump back in 2016. They don't realize that was not artificial. That wasn't Trump doing a study and then figuring out how to win those counties. That was radically organic, because Trump was talking about issues that finally resonated, particularly with the white working class at the time. And then in 2024, the non-white working class, where he won the most non-white voters of any Republican in half a century. So these are all organic. These are issues oriented. And think that you could bring over a demographic because of some study, and then you can adjust your messaging to the conclusions of that study. Further prove that whatever support you have to that extent of that demographic that you're trying to draw and seduce, as it were, is artificial. Hi, Q. Thanks for the pound sterling. Americans entering a new age of space. It needs Musk, his rocket ships, robots, etc. They need both. Put their need for power aside. Amen. Amen. That's what a lot of people are saying. They have no. I think what they're both finding out is that neither one of them gains from this. Well, if anything, another Kabuki theater thesis could be that the big beautiful bill actually did gain support, because now it was like, oh, whoa, this thing could get killed, and then we're all going to lose re-election come November 2026, because we're going to be standing on the other side of the largest tax increase in American history. So, I'm with you. I just don't think anyone is really outside of that. I don't think anyone's gaining from this. They're just losing. So it seems like it's an absurd feud when all's said and done. I reiterate, what on earth does Elon get out of this? Again, I could see it if this was, a matter of character. Trump is Epstein compromise. So I'm going with the Democrats. Well, then you got Bill Clinton, you got half the Democratic Party for all I know, all right, so that's not going to work. Or Trump is a hypocrite, so I'm going to go with the Democrat. Well, I mean, they covered up Biden's senility for 4 years and his cancer for 4 years. All right, I can't go there. Oh, well, they're spending too much. I'm going to go with the Democrat. Well, they added $1 trillion to the debt every quarter. So where are they going to go? Trump's too woke. He's become, where is he going to go? Well, I'll start my own third party. Okay, great. Then you split the Republicans and Democrats come to power. Now what? So, it's just, it's making no sense. His escalation ladder makes no sense. And in the end, as you see, Republicans are going to go with Trump. There's no way around that. They love Elon, but they're not loyal to Elon because they don't know if Elon is loyal to them. I think that's very key. The center cannot hold Dr. Steve. Elon is now threatening to fund Dems. Do you think this is theater? Is Sticks right? Do you think Elon may be back? I have not heard what Sticks Hexenhammer has said about it yet. I don't know what you mean. Sorry, BW, about Elon may be back. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Now, does Sticks think this is theater? Because again, that is a legit thesis as far as trying to figure out what's going on here. Perfectly legit. That's why I started off with it. So I don't know. The center is going to hold because the center is centered around Trump. Again, this is very important. Why would the center, or why would a mass portion of the Republicans go with Elon? Why would they be loyal to Elon if they don't even know he's loyal to them, where they know Trump is loyal to them? They know Trump can get shot in the face and he'll stand up and he'll look at them and say, you guys fight. You continue this fight. I'll take a freaking bullet for you. You keep fighting. We're in this together. That kind of loyalty doesn't just dissipate because of some angry tweets. So there you go. So I'll check out what Sticks had to say after this. Definitely. I love Sticks' commentary. Davros, thanks for providing clarity and much needed comfort in the wake of the Trump-Musk battle. But I'm also worried about Trump's travel ban on Afghanistan. We Afghan vets still have thousands of Afghan interpreters, guards, etc. We must help. I can't just abandon my guys. How can I encourage better policy to save my guys and other Afghan allies? Oh man, that's a phenomenal question, Davros. I don't know if I have an answer for that. So what now? Are we up to 12 countries that have both? This is a travel ban, and again, as I understood, there are ways around the ban. It's not an absolute ban, but it's a general ban where they don't accept people coming from those countries just automatically. You have to apply for a waiver, as I understand it. It comes from border security, the need for border security, which we're finding everywhere in the world, and it just manifests itself in different ways. So even like you're seeing it in cyberspace, where China has this whole massive cybersecurity network in place, so as to quote protect its citizenry from nefarious foreign influences. Or you just look at the way Emirates culture and Qatari culture and Saudi culture civilizations have risen up as part of the power and the wealth and technology that they've accumulated. Again, they see that power and wealth as a means by which to revitalize their culture and bring in certainly foreign investor, but not necessarily foreign cultural influence in their society. So you're seeing it in all kinds of ways. And then, of course, you're seeing it in its North Korea form. You're seeing it in its Russian form. It's broken out into an all-out war in Ukraine. And you're seeing it here with travel bans. It's all part of this worldwide phenomenon known as post-security politics. And at the heart of post-security politics is border security. So it's hard. So I guess you could talk to your congressman, or you could see if you could talk to somebody in a place of influence to see what you can do in order to relax some of those requirements, at least in your inner circle. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, the original troublemaker. That's right. Democrats are saying that now they're going to have a blue tsunami in 26 because Musk is going back to them. I got a laugh out of that one. What are your thoughts? Yeah, no, they're silly. They've been calling him, again, it shows you how insane they are. They've been calling him a Nazi now for 6 straight months. And now they're going to welcome a Nazi back home. I don't see it. Again, it makes no sense. If he's truly going back to the Democrats, I reiterate, over a reconciliation bill, and now he's going to go back to open borders, ending spending, and wokeness. Well, then he is a nut. Then he's an absolute certifiable nut, or he's a plant. I don't, again, but I mean, there's just no way around. It makes it. There's no logical sense. If your problem with the reconciliation bill is it doesn't deal with debt, deficit, and spending, and you say, all right, goodbye, I'm going to go with the Democrat Party that puts debt, deficit, and spending on steroids, it makes no sense whatsoever. It's like I'm against vaccines, so I'm going to go on over and hang out with Fauci. It just makes no sense. Benton, what's your opinion about the thought that the Ukrainian attack was due to the CIA, MI6, and Mossad support? This has too far-fetched. It was reported by an independent news source that drone electronic components were found in Jerry Nadler's office while they were searching for illegals. It seems far-fetched. Please give your opinion. Yeah, I couldn't comment on the Jerry Nadler thing. There's, NATO was clearly behind that attack. I mean, they wouldn't have the drones without, at the very least, NATO infrastructure. So NATO was clearly behind the attack. Russia knows that. And NATO officials know that Russia knows that. That's why the theory is they're trying to goad Russia into attacking a NATO country, trigger Article 5, and get reawaken the liberal international order, of which NATO is the chief enforcer. So, no, this wasn't just Zelensky. Now, was it Trump? I don't think so. No, I don't think Trump would ever greenlight this. So that's why a lot of us think that Graham and Sidney Blumenthal and others are sort of going around Trump and trying to reignite this war despite his efforts of bringing about peace. So that's why, again, Bannon is going full brass knuckles on Lindsey Graham, on trying to get him to be brought to heel publicly. So that this war can finally end. But again, this war ends, it has to be reiterated, on Putin's terms. Everyone is kidding themselves if they tell you anything differently. This does not end. If it ends, let's put it this way. If it ends in our terms, it's World War III. I'll just make it that simple for you. If it ends on our terms, it's World War III, and therefore it ends on nobody's terms. Right? So it just ends. That is the end. So, they're not going to go there, not under a Trump administration. I don't even see Trump wanting to defend France at this point. That's just, again, Trump has repeatedly called NATO obsolescent or obsolete. So, I just don't see too much coming out of that, those efforts to try to revitalize NATO. But clearly NATO is behind it, and I think they wanted the sophistication of the attack was, I think, to make it clear that, yes, deep state, NATO, CIA, what have you, MI6, you name it. Yeah, they're behind it. So come on, attack us so we can trigger Article 5 and reawaken the liberal international order. It's not going to work. Pika FPS, I personally believe that he is especially the anti-American bill the H-1B that he tried to push over 5 months ago, and we weren't happy about that. Let's say I personally believe that he is, especially the anti-American bill of H-1. So, I think what a lot of commentators have been saying, this is sort of the H-1B debate, on steroids, or part 2 of H-1B. And I think you're right. I mean, he went over the top on that as well. If you recall, there's the retweeting of a post he made where he said something like, I am absolutely 100%, behind this. And if you even remotely try to thwart my H-1B visa efforts, I'm going to retaliate in ways you can't even possibly conceive. It was just this over the top, inflated, disproportionate rhetoric to what we're talking about here. We're talking about a visa program, dude. So, and this does signal the potential rift between the trad crowd and the tech crowd. So we've got a tech trad alliance, right? We've talked about that, where Silicon Valley and social conservatives have come together to forge an alliance to destroy the anti-civilizational processes of wokeness. So civilization and civilizational advancement is what holds them together. They love Western civilization. They love humanity, and they both are concerned about demographic issues, fertility issues, and so on. But the thesis was that were the Democrats ever to splinter and falter and die, the two wings could easily split into two parties. So you would have a tech party and a trad party, and then they would, work out dialectically policy. And so in one sense, it seems like you are seeing something like that playing out if you see Elon's latest comments in light of the H-1B debate, which of course it all started with a tweet from a friend of his that was being considered, if I recall, to an AI czardom position. Alan Little, do you think Elon's Asperger's is feeding into his seemingly nonsensical behavior in all this? President Trump was sort of blindsided by this. Knowing his personality, his reaction is understandable. There is a notion that we are seeing, again, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't tend to, I find these explanations interesting, insightful, but I can't, I couldn't write a paper on it or anything like that. But there is an analysis out there that says that that makes the argument, and in the end, this is a clash between two different dispositions. So one is an engineering disposition, and the other one is a business real estate disposition. And they do things and handle things differently and have a very hard time speaking intelligibly to one another. So, and so his argument was that the digital mind, the engineering mind, needs everything out in the open because you're dealing with mechanisms. You need everything out in the open. You don't do things privately because then that could leave other people part of the circuitry out. The whole thing is cybernetic. Right. So it's a self-contained working system, and every part has to work in tandem with the other. So you're overly communicative and then you're hyper fixated on each part. Whereas the real estate developer is holding his cards. He's looking at the big picture, the big, beautiful picture. He's holding his card. He's not saying everything because you need stuff for negotiations. And boy, he could sure frustrate you when he doesn't lay everything on the table like you want him to. So this guy's argument is that it's not so much Elon's Asperger's that could play into it in terms of just the inflated rhetoric and the escalation, Defcon 5. But what are everybody's showing that? Is that from what's it? Ron Burgundy, the anchorman, where he's sitting back drinking a beer and in his office and go, boy, that escalated fast. And everyone's just sharing that meme everywhere. Well, and they just go, whoa, That really escalated fast. Very, very funny. The Anchorman, right? Will Ferrell. So it may play into that, but his argument is that they're two different dispositions that don't necessarily know how to communicate with each other, and they cross swords, and unfortunately. Davros, Dr. Turley, you're a great American. Our forces of freedom thrives on and depends upon dramatic victories that keeps excitement up and controls the news. Musk versus Trump is a big loss. What's our best bet for a victory to reclaim our momentum? Where's that victory coming from? Good question. I mean, there's so much going on in the world. I mean, obviously, stuff with China, trade deals. I mean, we got the escalation going on with Russia, granted, but I think Trump and Putin are going to work things out in terms of great power politics, great power partners. So there's still Greenland. There's all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's the border. So there's mass deportations. The deportations are up. Have you seen that? They've increased, what was it, 4,000 or 400% per day. So there's a lot going on. Of course, the Supreme Court victories coming, hopefully. We just had 3 of them. I talked about that last night. 3 unanimous victories in a row for conservatives. So there's so much going on here, and the big beautiful bill will pass. It cannot not pass. So I think we're good. Terry, would you agree that Elon's biggest problem is making the perfect the enemy of good? That's one. Yeah, I brought that up, Terry. I think so. I do. I think so. I think that's the enemy of a lot of people who are just so detail oriented. Again, you need that. You've got to have that, but you've got to keep it in proportion. You've got to see the part in relation to the whole. Life of Brian, great movie. Elon starting the high tax Republican Party, going at the 80% party. But now, how do we trace the deep state payoffs to Congress now? Well, it's because DOGE is still going on. DOGE is still happening. It's happening beyond Elon. And yeah, I mean, your first observation there, I know you're being a bit facetious, but it's right on. I mean, what he's arguing for is basically warmed over Masseyism and Paulism. Ron Paul had a good run back in 2012, if I recall. He had a good run, but Rand Paulism is lucky if it gets 1% a vote when you have Trump on the ticket. So it's not going anywhere. You've got more or less 3 factions, the Republican Party. You could probably break it up even more, but you've got your libertarians, particularly fiscal libertarians. You've got your neocons, your Lindsey Grahams, and so forth. And then you have your MAGA, and MAGA's by far the biggest movement there. And it's 100% behind Trump. I mean, there's just no way around it. Again, they're loyal to him because they know he's loyal to them. So in the negotiation process for Thune and Johnson, you have to be able to bring people like, Rand Paul together with Lindsey Graham. You got to figure out how to bring Ted Cruz together with Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins. And it is a balance. But as Gingrich says, they do it. It's part of the art of legislation. They do it. But all bills by definition are going to have tons of things in it where we go, ugh, yuck. But it is nothing. It's eclipsed by all the good that's in it. Now, again, you could talk about debt spending to your blue in the face. That is not why Trump won this election. He did not win the election over the debt. That was not his argument. That was, by the way, the argument back in 2010 with the Tea Party, and then the very obscure election 2014. And what the hell did they do about it? Nothing. Republicans did nothing. They even had a Republican in office for 2 years post 2016. Did nothing for the debt. So look, I mean, we have charts. The debt is out of control. It's what now 37 trillion, hit 40 trillion easily in the next several months. Our annual deficit is 2 trillion. Our trade deficit is 1.2 trillion. Trump has already cut the trade deficit in half with tariffs. The continuation of tariffs and negotiations, his goal is to eliminate it. the idea is with tax cuts, we're going to be able, and then with targeted spending cuts, particularly waste, fraud, and abuse, we're going to be able to grow our way out of the annual debt and see a balanced budget. That's the argument. And a lot of skeptics are seizing the CBO numbers, as opposed to the OMB numbers that see a deficit, see a surplus in the next 10 years, over the course of the next 10 years. They're seizing on the original CBO numbers, but the CBO's liberal. Again, this is very important. And the CBO is saying that this is going to add to the debt. CBO's liberal. CBO's a bunch of Democrats, and I don't know why anyone listens to them. You're right. It's the OBF. It's the Office Management Budget, OMB, that I think we should be listening to, and because that's the administration's charge, and then we can hold them accountable, whether they accomplish what they claim they were going to say. Whereas you can't hold a Congressional Budget Office accountable. They're just this faceless, nameless bureaucrats that are cited as prophets. It's absurd. Harry, New Mexico, Dr. Steve, did you see 3 weeks back Javier Milei's party won the Buenos Aires local elections? Afterwards, he predicted this party will win the National Congress elections later this year. I did not see that. Thank you for keeping me up to date on that, Harry. And yes, I think so. I mean, Javier Milei, it's very hard to win as an opposition party when the leader of the party has a 60% approval, and Javier Milei is very, very popular, as he should be. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, do you think that SCOTUS will finally run into these activist judges, especially now that another Pedo Joe appointed clown said that the administration can't deport the family of the Boulder terrorists, even though they overstayed a travel visa? Something needs to change. Well, you're not alone. And so, yes, I do. I think ultimately they're going to overturn that. Why they're taking their sweet time with it, I have no idea. They could have, again, it's Comey Barrett, Roberts, they tend to be proceduralists, so they just want this thing to, they want the appellate process to play itself out, I guess. I don't know, but I think it's absurd. Yes, I think they should step in. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, can you see the Trump sending Boulder terrorists to Gitmo? No, I doubt that. Boulder terrorist will, it's a good question. I take that back. Maybe he will. For some reason, I was interpreting his family. No, I take that back. Maybe he will. I don't know what he'll do with the Boulder terrorists. Kevin, question continued to exploit the difference of opinion to make it worse than it actually is. They've done this from the moment DOGE became effective. So apparently this was a continued question. So, Mike, is there a way you can find the first part? Because it doesn't make a lot of sense. Opinion to make it worse. So the doctor said, do you ever worry about your show becoming so big and influential that you end up deep in these kinds of online wars all the time? And then, okay, I'll take that. Oh no, I'll fall off that bridge when I get there, or if I get there, no, I don't. I'm not a contentious person. It's not in my nature. I don't tend to start arguments. What I did yesterday is it was actually analysis. It was, look, guys, we're seeing a fight break out. Okay. Too bad. This sucks. I don't like it. But I'm seeing a lot of people going, yeah, Elon, rah, rah, Elon. And I'm thinking, but you're saying that without the bigger picture of what is happening here. Elon is picking a fight with the most powerful man on the planet. He cannot win this by definition. There is no place he can escalate that Trump could not 10x an escalation. An escalation wars are won when your opponent has exhausted his escalation possibilities while you could keep going. That's how you win it. So that's really, in the end, that's all I said. Sorry, guys. I mean, Trump's got the polls. He's got the support for the bill. He's got all the members of Congress, more or less, the Republican members of Congress, even the biggest detractors of the bill don't want to get rid of it, again, except for Tom Massey, just kind of lives on his own island. They have the stick of the largest tax increase in American history if they don't pass this bill. So this bill is not going to get killed. It may get radically changed thanks to Elon. That's great. But in the end, you're not going to kill this bill. And the more Elon wants to escalate with Trump, the more he's only going to end up hurting himself. And I think here we are, what now, 18 hours later? I think I came out of that one pretty well. So, Kevin, Dr. Steve, I love President Trump and what he's doing. I also believe Mr. Musk is and will be central to make incredible advances to the world and beyond. I hope that this rift will close when Elon really sees what Trump is accomplishing. We need them both. Do you think that the mainstream media is trying to exploit the difference of opinion and make it worse than it actually is? They've done this from the moment DOGE became effective. Believe it or not, the sense I get is the media is kind of shell-shocked. They don't know what to make of that. Look, the difference of opinion is pretty bad. When one side says that Trump is a pedo, that he's in the Epstein files, and that's why it's not coming out, that I'm going to start a new party, and that Trump should be impeached and replaced. It doesn't get a lot worse than that. That's about as Defcon 5 as you can get. And then Trump turns around and was relatively measured and said, I'm sorry he's turned against me like this, but it's obviously because he's angry we won't give him the tax breaks he wants. And I'm not going to give it to him. And it's obviously, he feels like a man scorned because I kind of kicked him out of DOGE. So, that's Trump. That's Trump kind of goading Elon. Elon goes for the jugular, but there is no jugular for Trump. It's the most powerful man in the world. There is no jugular. So he can turn around and go, oh, yeah, and by the way, he is a Nazi. We all know he is. It's just, that's pretty bad. That's pretty rhetorically inflated. And again, keep it in mind, this all has to do, in the end, with the reconciliation bill. Now, I've heard people say, well, it's not about a reconciliation, but yes, it is. Yes, it fundamentally, that's exactly where it started. This reconciliation bill is an abomination. That's where it started. This his principles are no. The reconciliation bill is an abomination. And here's why it's an abomination. It's basically just a bunch of pork, and he's betraying everything he said to the American people. Okay, whoa, take a step back. Yeah, there's pork in there. We know that. Everyone knows that. Yeah. Betraying everything he told you. Closed border, mass deportations, bringing manufacturing back home, setting up tariffs and creating bilateral trade agreements, destroying and stopping all things woke, setting up DOGE to DOGE the entire part of it. That's betraying? Stop it. I mean, seriously, you're petulant children when you talk that way. You never let me do anything. All right, well, obviously we can't have a conversation. Conversations literally is conversio. It's to be able to go with, it's to be able to verse with the other person. And if our verses aren't making any sense, it's like I was listening to some guy talking about how a pro woke, transgender guy talking about how trans women are now men. And so it was trans men are now women. And that's it. That's the end of the story. And we need to stop, and I'm like, I don't even know what to say to this guy. He just in effect said trans women are non-women. That's what he said. Trans women are non-women. He just said A is non-A. A is non-A. And I'm just, or what? Yeah. Trans man is a non-man. And I'm just like, this is the laws of logic here. A cannot be non-A at the same time and in the same relationship. The very fact that you're arguing with me over this point, the very fact that you're arguing for this woke position proves the point. It cannot be true and not true at the same time. So it just, it just seems to me that there's just so much language that's being used right now that's just so out over the top that it's impossible to have a rational conversation. And then with that case, again, that's where relationships kick in. That's where you say, well, I will not, I'm not going to jeopardize my relationship with you. I'm here for you, but I don't think I necessarily want to talk to you. And that's what I got a little bit from Trump earlier today. It's like, look, I'm not thinking about Elon. Obviously he's got some issues right now. And, I'm just going to move on. So. Rock Dog, that's Steve. When is Trump cutting all military to Ukraine? Still waiting for him to fulfill his promise to end the war. He's trying, Rock Dog. Come on. He's trying. Again, the promise to end the war is the greater promise. I will not escalate. That was my argument when I was in Vegas. When he said to Putin, you better watch out, Vlad, you're playing with fire. It's like, dude, you were not elected to escalate this. You were elected to de-escalate. That's bottom line. That's what I'll end this war in 24 hours is all about. Again, don't take Trump literally, take him seriously. And what does he mean seriously? I'm not going to escalate this war like Biden is. I'm not going to start allowing attack and missiles to go 200 miles inside Russia. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to tell NATO, yeah, sure, do whatever you want to escalate this war. We're not escalating the war. So the war is going to play itself out within a very limited theater. And that's what I think, again, in fairness, that's what's happening. Now Zelensky tried to expand that theater, but it's on a one-off. It's on this gimmick with the drones going in 2,000 miles into Russia. I mean, just, okay, you want to do a one-off? Fine. But systemically, Russia's just cleaning them up when all's said and done. So it's gonna end when Putin says so. Rock Dog, period. I didn't make the rules. I didn't make the rules here. It's going to end when Putin says so. Joan, what does NATO think? Why does NATO think they're as powerful as some ancient empires? Yeah, I would say they think they're more powerful in the sense because they think they have a technology that's able to sustain them. But they also, I do believe they think they have an ideology that's the first true one-size-fits-all ideology for all peoples because they think it's an ideology that transcends culture. So at the very least, Rome was trying to impose its gods, its culture, its ways of justice and so forth that were very inherently Roman. And in the 18th century, you got the notion of the Enlightenment that said, we've just discovered laws of science that open up reality to us in such a way that bypasses the preconceptions of the knower. And so we can actually have objective, unbiased knowledge. And then if we translate that into a political and economic system, this happens in the 19th century, we translate that into a political and economic system, we can actually superimpose that on all populations so that we basically have a one-size-fits-all political and economic system that ends all wars and that provides for, just unending progress and universal harmony. So they really believe that. Of course, it's absurd, it's insane. Only a Western imperialist would think that way because this comes from the Western tradition, the Western scientific tradition. Only a Western imperialist who separates church and state would ever think that you can separate church and state. So it's absurd. It's all rooted in a metaphysics. It's all rooted in a culture and a civilization, and the rest of the world sees as what it is. And NATO is what they are. They are colonialists. They are imperialists, Western imperialists for that matter, and they want nothing to do with it. So that's why most of the world is with Russia on this one. I've talked about that ad nauseum on my videos. People were stunned at that when I was saying that back in, March, April, May of 2022. People were stunned at that. So you do understand that probably about 85% of the population is with Russia on this. Not because they agree with what Russia did, but because of how much they disagree with what NATO has become. It's not that they agree with what Russia did. It's what they disagree with what NATO has become. And again, so for right or for wrong, you could just dismiss that. But when it's 85% of the world's population, dismiss it at your peril. You've bumped into your own 80-20 doom loop. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, my response to Elon Musk is name one bill that is perfect. Your thoughts? Yeah, exactly. The perfect cannot be the enemy of the good. Absolutely. I think everybody agrees with that. And that's why, ironically, I think Musk has made the bill stronger on the Hill. That's word on the street. That's what we're getting. See, Gingrich seems to see that as well, is that his blow up with Trump has brought to the fore the seriousness of what could happen were this bill to fail. And so they're all the more determined to make sure it passes. Mary, thank you so much for the super chat. Very appreciated, Mary. Bushidoki. Who remembers Don Lemon? Oh, I love it. Who remembers Don Lemon? He put himself out there to give both sides a chance, and the lemon strikes like a cobra at him. Yes, I could see that. I don't know what you're talking about in particular, but oh my gosh, yeah, Don Lemon. Talk about a character, that's for sure. Josh, do you think Vivek's exit early on could have been tied to something like this? That's a really good question. I didn't even think about that. Possibly. Maybe. Vivek is the one who's laughing right now, ironically. Now, keep in mind, he was the one who was siding with Elon. They were together on the H-1B debate that lasted a good 12, 14 hours, and then finally got resolved, and we didn't hear about it from that point forward. So he was the one who actually wrote the very stinging tweet that excoriated American pop culture for producing less than stellar engineers and workers and so on. So it's a good question, but I don't know how much that plays into that. It's a very good question. We can only speculate. Vivek seems to have come out of this pretty untouched. Although for a while, a lot of MAGA did not care for him. Good morning, Dr. Steve. Do you believe the rift between Trump and Elon might be a psyop, or some pundits opine? So yeah, well, at the beginning, if you're just joining us at the beginning, I call it the Kabuki thesis, that this may be virtual politics, a Kabuki theater. Again, most likely possibly to give Elon some space from Trump in such a way where he can create a rift and then re-ingratiate himself to Tesla buyers that tend to be more on the center left, and also in the international world that may be a little bit upset at Trump right now because of the tariffs, i.e., say Canada, for example, or India, what have you, China for sure. And so yeah, that's a possibility. Again, it could be a blowback to try to get more cuts in the Senate version, and then when it goes back to the House, for them to greenlight it, and we have the big beautiful bill. So yeah, who knows what the Kabuki theater is ultimately for? But to me, this just escalated. So I mean, Elon went so utterly ballistic, it did not appear to be a script. It appeared to be him going unhinged. And the sense I get, and again, I don't know, but the sense I get is he thought he could kill the bill. He thought he could destroy the bill. And when he realized he couldn't, if anything, he made it stronger. He lost it. And he got, and then when Trump came out and, as far as he was concerned, called into question his character, basically saying, "Oh, well, it has nothing to do with libertarian principles or spending or debt issues." And so forth. He's just ticked because we took away the tax. We took away the tax credit for EVs. Then he just flipped. All right, well, here I'll drop this bomb on you. You were in the Epstein file. It's okay. Something just ended up triggering in Elon, ironically. Joan, the sheriff of Mobile County, Alabama, is so disgusted with teenage gangs that he wants to put them all in an arena and let them kill each other. A 2-year-old was shot in the face, Wednesday morning. Sounds like the Gladiators was a similar motive, at least partly behind Gladiator contests. That's a good question. I don't know if it was a similar motive. Let the barbarians kill each other. I don't know. I don't know the origin of the Gladiator and how the Gladiator started. See, it seems to me, again, in the old days, you had to be prepared to do battle. Yeah, you did not have a police force. What's known as the paterfamilias, which is the head of a family, the head of the family who is, he'd be in charge of an entire tribe. You see it. You see it in the mob. It's basically mobs are paterfamilia. Africa still has that. Middle East still has that. Where you have sort of almost like a chief sultan of the family, and then he oversees the entire family, his brothers, his sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, you name it. It could be a very, very sizable tribe. They will train and have their own police force. And so back in the day, before you had professional police, you had weapons training and battle readiness was part of your education. So it just seems to me it was an extension of that. It was live. They didn't use gloves, that's for sure. It was live. So and of course death was much more a part of life than it is now. We go through something called sequestration. Sequestration means if somebody dies, they're removed from sight and view of the space of the living. Whereas back then, I mean, you had people dead in the streets here or there. If somebody died, they died in your house. They stayed there. They lied in state for some days. That was going on all the way up to the 19th century. So sequestration came with the modern world. So anyway, I think you put those battle readiness and the ubiquity of death, they kind of came together and formed it. But that's purely the prima facie. I don't know. Segundo, read Olavo de Carvalho, the greatest of all time of this century. Segundo, I have interviewed Olavo de Carvalho. I have spoken many a times with Olavo de Carvalho online, and of course was very saddened to hear of his passing a few years back. But I'm friends with him on Facebook, friends with his family, his daughter, and so forth. He is astonishing. He was an amazing philosopher, Brazilian philosopher. People don't know. He's considered sort of like the intellectual guru, the new Brazilian right that ushered in Jair Bolsonaro. He was absolutely breathtakingly brilliant. They sent me an article of his that he did on Aristotle and a new read of Aristotle. That I was like, what is this guy? How does he even think this way? So I'm with you. He is the GOAT of the century for sure. Thank you, Segundo. What is it? Yeah. Muito obrigado. I said Havala. That's Croatian. My gosh. Or Serbian. Yeah. Muito obrigado. Thank you. Roberto Davis seems like a movie plot twist. Kabuki Theater. Yeah, I guess so. I love it. You even found some emoji. I love it. Thanks. Thanks, Roberto. Mitchell, why doesn't Trump publicly call out Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal for the attack? Well, I don't know well, I guess if he did Blumenthal, I'd have to do Lindsey Graham. He's got to be very careful because he wants Lindsey Graham voting for the big, beautiful bill. This is part of the politics that it seems that Musk didn't quite understand. Politics plays by its own rules. The rules are power. And Trump needs Lindsey Graham on his side. That's why he's already endorsed Lindsey Graham for re-election. I don't think that will necessarily help Lindsey Graham because maybe it was an endorsement with a wink on it. So if there's a real viable challenger to Lindsey Graham, which I believe there's two right now. Mark Davis, am I recalling correctly? And then a woman, if I recall, businesswoman. So, but he's got to do that or else Graham will say, I just really can't get over that one provision in that bill. Oh, good, you got rid of that. Yeah, but then there's this other provision. And before you know it, you don't have a bill, right? So that's the way politics works, unfortunately. Maximilian, good to hear from you. What is the myth of progress? What does it get right? What does it get wrong? How we can utilize it for our ends? Also, long time no see. Absolutely, Maximilian. Welcome back. Well, very briefly, it's part of the Enlightenment. And the Enlightenment basically was committed, 18th century Enlightenment was committed to 5 things. It was committed to reason over and against religion for all matters of public policy. That because they thought that reason had a way of being able to bypass our our personal biases and preconceptions of knowing and give us an unblemished sense of reality. So they focused on reason. They focus on autonomous laws, or they focused, I should say, on personal autonomy, where because I have reason, I do not need any other institution to tell me what's right, what's wrong, what's good, or what's bad. They focused on the laws of nature, that we can tap into predictable laws of cause and effect so as to be able to understand how the world around us works. And to the extent that we can do that, then we can have this unending progress. Sky is the limit of to what we can create, build, and forge, because we understand finally how the cosmos works. And the ultimate end of that is that if all human populations join in, we get universal harmony. So those are the 5 basic beliefs of the Enlightenment, and the notion of progress, the myth of progress, is that ultimately extrapolate. We've gone from simple-celled organisms and then evolved slowly to knuckle draggers, Neanderthals, and then Homo sapiens, and then finally we end up tapping into 18th century laws of nature, physics, biology, chemistry, and now we can zoom to the stars. Basically, there's no end to what we can figure out. And so as part of this progressive sense, anything that was yesterday, we just don't need anymore. It was part of our evolutionary development, but now it's just an evolutionary throwback. So we don't need religion anymore. Religion was there when we didn't understand thunder and lightning. That's why we had religion. That's why Pharaoh created some of the most astonishing structures on the planet. It's because he didn't know what thunder was. So they buy into this. Christianity, people were gullible enough to believe that somebody actually was risen from the dead. Yeah, of course they did, because they weren't as advanced as we are. So the myth of progress basically argues that whatever came before us is not as valuable as what comes next, because what comes next is part of our destiny of limitless evolution. And then that even leads to transhumanism, where even humanity itself is just a stage. It's a step of this non-ending development within, as long as the cosmos is alive, or our solar system is alive. And then, of course, we'd have to find some kind of intersolar travel and the like. So that's what it is. And I'm glad you called it a myth, because one is part of the progressivist notion is that mythology and magic and ritual and religion are things that we don't need anymore. We've progressed past them. And the irony is that is precisely what we call the progressive myth. That is the myth of progress. This conception, this imaginative map of reality, is itself rooted in metaphysical assumptions. We never stop being mythical. We never stop being religious. We never stop being ritualized. It's embedded in what it means to be human. So it's the myth of progress entails, I think, its own inherent contradiction. It claims to have progressed beyond myth, but then that becomes its myth. Progressivism claims it doesn't need religion anymore, but that's only because progressivism has become the ultimate religion. Progressives claim that they're beyond ritual. They don't need, out of date rituals anymore. And then you see the BLM rallies and the pro-Palestinian rallies and so forth. And you see ritual regalia, all symbols, chants, marches, which are literally processions all over the place. They're just as ritualized as anybody else. Scientific lab coats are basically, priestly gear and regalia and so on. So there you go. Awesome. It's a great question, Maximilian. Great to hear from you again. BW, you think it'll pass? Yeah, the big, beautiful bill will pass. Yeah, it has to. I mean, there's no, when I say it has to, I don't mean that desperately. I mean, there's no reason ultimately for it not to pass. There's a carrot and there's a stick. So the carrot is the MAGA base wants this. Most Republicans want it, and the MAGA base wants it. To vote against that is to risk the ire of Trump, which is very. If you're in a seat that's even remotely vulnerable, that'll crush you. That'll kill you. That's far worse than any check that Elon can write. So you got the wind at your back. The majority of Republicans support the bill. 80% of MAGA supporters support the bill. And the stick is that if you don't pass it, you're going to be sticking taxpayers with the largest tax increase in American history on December 31st of this year. And then you're going to have to go for re-election with that in the shadow of that. No Republican wants to do that, full stop. So there's just no reason not to pass this. So there is certainly this crazy, whatever it is, this kind of kabuki puppet show going on. And I don't want to dismiss it, because I do think, for example, it does expose a significant rift in the tech trad alliance, where the tech world and the trad world, the Silicon Valleys and the social conservatives that have a lot of, Venn diagram crossover, but also have significant divergence as well. And so it seems to be, again, Silicon Valley tends to be a lot more globalist. They tend a lot pro H-1Bs, tend to be very much more pro China. They're very anti tariff. They tend to be transhuman. They often are pro-choice. So there are significant differences from the social conservatives and trad crowd. So it's a tenuous alliance, but it is, I think, an alliance that is inevitable nevertheless, because I think the world is moving in an archaeo-modern direction. I think in many ways it's already there. So the traditional and the technological are going to continue to mix together. But until it fully mixes together, there are tensions there. Mary Kay, could this be the purpose to redeem Musk and Tesla in eyes of Democrats? So that's one of the theories or the theses, Mary. It's a way of Elon decoupling himself. This is the Kabuki thesis. It's Elon decoupling himself from Trump in a way where they both come out on top. Elon looks principled and Trump looks populist. So they both come out on top. And then this way he can ingratiate himself more with the very demographic that historically has bought his cars, to put it bluntly. So whether it's true or not, we don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens with Tesla stock. And that's it. All right, gang. I love seeing you all. God bless you. Thank you for all those questions. You're amazing. Again, if anything pops up over the weekend, I'll make sure to get right back on camera for you guys. And until then, I'll see you on Monday. God bless.